So a friend of mine recently told me that he wanted to start watching Doctor Who again, specifically Peter Capaldi's 12th Doctor. He's one of those friends who, bear with me here, stopped watching the show after David Tennant regenerated, and skipped Matt Smith. If you grew up in the Russell T Davies era of the show, you probably know a guy like this. But I'm convinced that with my help, he can get through this. He doesn't have to hide it anymore. The first stage is acceptance. And the second stage is watching some Peter fucking Capaldi motherfuckers. Let's go! So with this in mind, I started thinking about where would be best to start someone on the 12th Doctor. Of course, common sense would point to Deep Breath, but I have decided against picking that for a few reasons. I enjoy Deep Breath a good deal, but it takes a while to get going. It spends an awful lot of time dwelling on the fact that the Doctor is an old man now. We've got Clara trying to get over this detail, and the central mystery doesn't actually kick in until about the halfway mark, when the Doctor properly wakes up. I think this is potentially a bad way to start someone on a Doctor, especially if they haven't seen the show in almost 10 years. In fact, I think a lot of Doctor openers might be bad places to start. I know that seems counterintuitive, but to me it can be a little jarring to see the Doctor cooking the whole way through the episode and find themselves, pick out their outfit, etc. Sometimes it can feel a bit like when they reboot Batman or Spider-Man at the movies and we get shown the origin for about the millionth time. We can gather the who and why of the Doctor without all this. I'd rather just cut to the chase. Plus, Deep Breath is so firmly entrenched in the pre-established lore of the Moffat era, with Clara, the Paternoster gang, that I think it could be like chucking someone into the deep end. If you're showing someone something that they're curious about, but not sure whether or not they will like it, you really only have one shot at it. You can't be like, I know Deep Breath was a bit slow, but this next episode is really good. You've already lost them. It needs to be an episode which works to tell you everything you need to know about what makes the 12th Doctor tick. It needs to show him truly tested. It needs to show him having fun, as well as in a state of distress. It needs to give us a little vertical slice of the action. We need to see a decent dynamic between Doctor and companion, and we need to feel like by the episode's resolution, the show has all to play for. I considered episodes like Listen, The Zygon Inversion, Heaven Sent, Oxygen, World Enough and Time, and The Doctor Falls, but all these episodes would benefit from some context. They're great displays of what Capaldi can do, but I feel like they also benefit from you already being comfortable enough with his Doctor to see him bend the rules. I wanted to show this person something clean, an episode where you could decide from just that episode whether or not you're going to like Capaldi as the Doctor. So, I settled on what is my favourite episode of Series 8. You guessed it, Mummy on the Orient Express. Mummy on the Orient Express was a nice little surprise for me when it first aired back in October 2014. I remember thinking it looked a little odd. I didn't know how to feel about the train in space thing. The trailers made it seem like it had a whiff of a dinosaurs on a spaceship type vibe. I missed its initial air date at the time, and the following Monday I was sitting on the floor on a poorly organised South West Rail train, huddled up amongst some other passengers with laptops in hand. I had planned on doing something productive, but being sans seat, I elected to watch this episode instead. Now, I'm not going to say whether or not I loved it as soon as I saw it, but let's just say that I had to move where I was sat about 3 times, and I eventually ended up watching the last third standing up. I was absolutely captivated. Why? Because this was the episode that made me truly love the 12th Doctor. Don't get me wrong, I was enjoying him up until that point, but I didn't love him yet. Not in the way I took to the 11th Doctor fairly early in Series 5. Lots of things about the 12th Doctor niggled at me. I wasn't quite sure I liked him being such a dick at times. The outfit was, as he pointed out, a little bit too magician. I wasn't anti-12, but I still wasn't quite convinced. And in context, that's quite late into a series to still be feeling that way. We had seen more than half of Series 8 at this point. But Mummy manages to perfectly consolidate an adventure that plays to Capaldi's strengths, as well as the core tenets of the show. We waste no time in the opening scene, establishing the threat of the mummy, or the foretold. An on-screen timer cues us in so that we know exactly how long the foretold's victim has to live, counting down from exactly 66 seconds. It's a little bit goofy and camp in the way Doctor Who excels, and later down the line it actually works to instill some neat moments of tension as the seconds count down and the mummy closes in on its prey. The Foretold is a great adversary because it highlights the Doctor's USP as a hero. No one can see the threat, and those that can are powerless to use any means to overpower it. To defeat it, it will take more than guns, more than brute force. It will take a mind like the Doctor, and the will to stop at nothing to find the answers to stop it. This is also true of the real villain of the story, but more on him in a bit. The structure of this episode is really tight, and it serves both character and plot in equal measure. The first 2/3 of the episode are a slow burn. We see the Doctor, dressed in an absolutely impeccable outfit by the way, and Clara arrive on a pitch-perfect recreation of the Orient Express. But of course, their stay is interrupted by the onset of several strange murders aboard the vessel. Both of them seek to investigate in their own way, and through this, both our leads get to meet a bevy of interesting supporting characters. The masterstroke to this episode's structure occurs when the true antagonist of the episode is revealed, a sinister artificial intelligence called Gus, who has orchestrated the entire trip as a means to test the capabilities of the mysterious Foretold. He speaks in this delightfully upbeat tone that makes him sound super cold and creepy when he threatens people, which is awesome. The last third of the story sees Gus trap the Doctor and the passengers, made up of scientists and experts, within a single carriage that acts as a lab to study the creature. They have only one choice: find out what Gus wants to know, or slowly die one by one at the hands of this relentless monster. This decision is great because it brings all the disparate elements of the narrative together in a single laser-focused package. Once the action comes together in the lab, the tension and pace of the episode really hits its stride, and it's a perfect balance to counter the more character-focused front end. Speaking of those characters, we of course get to see Clara and the Doctor together. We're told at the start through their exchanges that they plan to make this their last hurrah, which is an interesting place to find Time Lord and companion. And yeah, I know I'm arguing this as an entry-level crash course in Capaldi, and that this plot point is a direct continuation from Kill the Moon. But you don't need to watch that to understand what is going on here. The argument in that episode just serves as the catalyst for what we are seeing in Mummy. As with any good story, all the pertinent information that we need to know is conveyed within the boundaries of said story. What follows is genuinely sweet. We see them enjoy each other's company in a way that is satisfyingly melancholy, both of them knowing that they love their adventures, whilst understanding that they must end because of the friction between them. There's a brilliant moment where the Doctor clarifies the nature of this final trip, and Clara understands that he isn't the sort of person that will check in for innocuous chats and catch-ups.
To our last hurrah.
Oh, last, yeah, but I mean, it's not like I'm never going to see you again.
Isn't it?
This really is the end. And all the supporting characters in this are great. You've got Frank Skinner's Perkins, who is practically a one-off companion, and plot-wise acts almost like a proto-Nardole. Oftentimes Doctor Who can fall into this cliche where the Doctor meets a brilliant person, smart and highly capable, the Doctor implies he'd invite them to join the TARDIS once the threat is over, they die before they can. Rinse and repeat. And whilst Perkins does get an offer at the end of the episode, he refuses with dignity. Plus the Doctor isn't gushing over him at any point, they have an initial distrust that turns into a strong bond as they become the only two best equipped to try and find a solution. I genuinely would have liked to have seen this character crop up again, in the same way Craig did post The Lodger. The captain of the ship, Captain Quell, is a man suffering from psychological torment from being the sole survivor in a tragedy of war. Morehouse is a professor so dulled over by Earth that he's desperate to get his blood pumping and come face to face with real adventure. What I like about both these supporting characters is that it is the Doctor who allows them to grow. Captain Quell is forced to reconcile with his PTSD when the Doctor calls him out for his blind eye surrounding the murders. And he reignites Morehouse's passions. Their deaths are also really well done.
Oh, no, that didn't work before. What kind of soldier would I be, dying with bullets in my gun?
That's a badass line. Maisie gets the chance to talk to Clara, where she reveals that the woman who died, her mother, wasn't in fact her real mother. She's emotionally stunted and clearly unhappy with her life, but gets a moment to sit down with someone and open up about her frustrations. It makes Clara seem genuinely kind and compassionate to boot. Maisie also gives Clara the chance to grapple with her friendship to the Doctor. All of these characters are given neat little moments that make you feel for them and understand them. This means that when the mummy starts killing them, you actually give a crap. I've been having a real internal debate about whether or not to swear in these videos. I mean, can I say crap? Is crap a swear word? Crap! It seems like an obvious point to make, but too often does Doctor Who skip over the details that give the people around our leads that much needed depth. And on that note, having a body count like the one in this episode is really satisfying. It raises the stakes every time the mummy takes another victim. You know that the Doctor has to up his game each and every time, because if he doesn't start thinking quicker, another person will be dead. It's inevitable. Watching the Doctor get flustered is great, and gives us lines like this.
A man just died in front of us. Can we not just have a moment?
No. We can't do that. We can't mourn. People with guns to their heads, they cannot mourn. We do not have time to mourn.
Seriously, there are a lot of great lines in this episode. Having us care about these characters makes us more invested in our Doctor, and we buy that they would help him work as a team to overcome the threat. We eventually find out that the Foretold is in fact picking off the passengers in order of weakness, with those who had physical and even psychological issues being up for the chop. They realise that Maisie is next in line, and the Doctor forces Clara to lie to her to bring her into the lab. Here we get the darkest moment of the episode for the Doctor. Yep, he knew. He knew that bringing Clara here would put her in danger, almost definitely, but he played it off like a jolly, because he loves this, and more importantly, so does Clara. I think this is great as an opener to the 12th Doctor, because it reminds us of the notion that the Doctor endangers people around him. He can save as many people as he wants, but that lingering question will always haunt him. Does he put people in harm's way? Does he cause more harm than good? Plus I think this gives Capaldi's Doctor an edge that this series was trying to pull off early on but didn't quite manage. In episodes like Into the Dalek, they try to go for the same feeling, but he just ends up coming off like a bit of a dick. Here, his cold nature makes perfect sense. All that leads to the final turn of the episode. The Doctor wasn't really intending to harm Maisie for research purposes. He was doing it to sacrifice himself, transferring her anxieties into his own mind, forcing the Foretold to attack him instead. And honestly, when was the last time you saw a one-parter story resolve itself so neatly without feeling like a cheat? True to his word, the Doctor gets 66 seconds with the Foretold, and it is over. All of the clues and tidbits the episode has drip-fed you comes into play here, as we see the Doctor think out loud and deduce the magic words that will stop the Foretold, all as the monster bears down on him, and it fits in really nicely with the theme of the series. But again, since I'm using this as entry-level Who, we won't go into that. In the end, Clara asks him if he was pretending to be heartless, if he knew for sure that he could save Maisie. And the Doctor laments that he never knows, that he couldn't save everyone, but that he was going to keep trying and trying until he managed to stop the mummy and save someone, which is what he did. Here we see that whilst the 12th Doctor can be cold, he does in fact care. Not just about the people he was stuck in that room with, but Clara too. Beneath his gruff, grumpy old man exterior, he's a hero. And what's great about the body count I mentioned earlier is that now, on the flip side, we're given a renewed feeling of hope. The Doctor saved people, and it was all worth it. Plus we get to see Clara and the Doctor mend their relationship, and they blast off into the stars for more adventures. So not only is this why I love Mummy on the Orient Express, but I also think it is a perfect opener to the Capaldi era. If you've got a friend who stopped watching the show in 2010, I think this is a good point to catch them up to speed to see if they're going to continue to like it. And of course, this whole plan is foolproof, because even if they don't like Mummy on the Orient Express, and really, who doesn't like Mummy on the Orient Express? You can pull the same trick all over again when the new series comes out. Come on, buddy. It's basically a reset of the show. You can jump on board here knowing nothing. Yeah, there's really no escape from Doctor Who.
And I should know because my name is Max.
Thank you so much for watching our video. If you'd like to see more from Full Fat videos, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. You can see our social media links down below if you want to follow us on things like Twitter. And thank you very much to all our patrons. If you would like to join our Patreon, the link is in the description. We will see you next week.